With the launch of StarField just around the corner, we'll soon be able to dive into a brand new universe by Bethesda. And if you want to immerse yourself as much as possible into this new universe, you'll need to know the background story. So allow me to tell you the story of StarField. Hello ladies and gentlemen, just to clarify, there will be no StarField spoilers in this video. This is merely looking at the history leading up from present day up till the time period when StarField starts, the time period we will be playing when the game comes out. We're gonna start our story in 2050, where the first humans managed to reach Mars. Humans began to build more permanent bases and eventually full-on colonies. And by the year 2100, humans now have a permanent colony on Mars, and that means that we have humans that's both born, live, and die the entirety of life. So you might actually have humans that never actually see planet Earth. From this point on, the human race reaches further and further into space. And by the year 2156, the first human ships arrived at Alpha Centauri, which you will know is the closest star to our solar system, merely 4.37 light years away. 3 years later, in 2159, a number of different colonies have now been constructed in various locations, and the organization, the United Colonies, are formed, which is, as the name suggests, a union for off-world or non-Earth human colonies to kind of have mostly a political influence by this point in time. The year later, in 2160, New Atlantis is discovered in the Alpha Centauri system, and the United Colonies immediately make this their capital. This is a Earth-like world where you can have human life living on the surface without the need of a spacesuit or anything like that, which makes it a natural choice for a capital for, well, non-Earth colonies. 29 years after the discovery of New Atlantis in 2189, colonies are springing up everywhere. Not all of these colonies, however, are interested in joining the United Colonies. So a new organization is formed called Freestar Collective. This is formed between the colonies on two planets called Volley and Cheyenne. There are still plenty of independent colonies out here who's not a member of neither the United Colonies or Freestar. And in 2194, United Colonies begins to build a space station in orbit around a planet called DTEA, which is in a system called Narion. Now, at this point in time, there were already colonies on some of the planets in the Narion system, and these people kind of saw it as United Colonies beginning to move into their territories, and they were not really interested in that. So they asked the United Colonies to move their space station someplace else. The United Colonies refuses, and as they clearly feel threatened by the United Colonies, the people living in Narion decided to join the Freestar Collective. And things begins to escalate from here, because in 2195, that's the year after the production of the space station began, the Freestar Collective began to mobilize a force in order to protect the Narion system. Now, at this point, things are a little tense between United Colonies and the Freestar Collective, and the year after again, United Colonies also begins to move military equipment into the Narion system. And it is at this point that the Narion War officially begins, as Freestar Collective and the United Colonies goes to war over the Narion system. The war rages on for 20 years, and in 2216, finally a peace treaty is signed called the Treaty of Narion. Peace finally seems to come to the galaxy again. So while peace has officially been achieved, I think both sides at this point is a little bit on edge. And Freestar, they see a need for them to build some kind of force that can protect their citizens for future attacks. And therefore, an organization called Freestar Rangers is formed, which is an elite military unit which sole purpose is to protect the citizens that's member of the Freestar Collective. Moving forward to 2275, we're gonna leave Freestar and United Colonies for a bit. A group of scientists from various fields of study decides to form a group called Constellation, with their main goal being to preserve knowledge for the coming generations. Moving forward to 2307, we're now almost 100 years after the original Treaty of Narion was signed. Freestar Collective at this point decide to expand into the system Lunara. Here they begin to build colonies on the planet Vesta. United Colonies see this as a breach of this Narion contract, as Freestars expand beyond their original 3 systems. So despite attempts at diplomatic talks, that quickly breaks down. United colonies then lay siege to Vesta, just beginning orbital bombardments of the planets, killing everyone on the surface, civilian, military. If it was breathing, it was dead, basically. And this kicks off the second war, called the Colony Wars. 3 years after the war, our scientist friends over at Constellation comes across their first artifact. At this point in time, they don't really know what it is, so they just put it away in storage for further research in the future. In 2311, the Colony War is still raging on, and Freestar and United colonies are back at it again, shooting at each other as they've been doing before. Freestar, however, is getting a little tired of this, so they collect a fleet combining both military and civilian ships, which at the time was located in the Cheyenne system, which you may recall was one of the original Freestar systems. The vast majority of the United colonies fleet was destroyed, thus ending the war. 4 years later, in 2315, United colonies was not really too happy with Freestar using civilian ships for their military operations. Because of that, and in direct response to that attack, United colonies form a group called United Colonies Vanguard. This is a primarily civilian fleet of people that are basically guns for hire that has been paid to work and to further United colonies' interests. Essentially, they are what would in the old days be called privateers. And as a thank you for the service to United colonies, any member of United Vanguard will also be granted a citizenship into the United colonies. Now we're getting close to where our story begins with StarField. In 2326, Constellation has been growing their numbers, and there are now more people researching than ever before. One of the members, Barrett, he finds this artifact that has now been sitting for years and years and years in storage, and notices that there must be something special about it. Takes it out of the archives, and the research into the artifact officially begins. 2 years later, in 2328, he is convinced that there must be more of these out here. So he convinces all the other scientists that's part of Constellation to buy the space station L868. This space station is then modified into a deep space scanning array that will then hopefully be used to gather more information about these artifacts. And this is where our story begins. Now, the final thing I want to tell you before I close out this video is, as you might see, I've stopped running sponsors on my videos. And I'm not going to ask you to go and subscribe to a Patreon or anything like that. I would much rather if you would consider subscribing to this channel. And in return, I promise you that I'll be delivering guides, tutorial, informational videos, gameplay videos about StarField and other space games as interesting thing happens. Thanks a lot for watching. Until next time, I'll see you guys in space.